Hello, this is Lewis with a short video demonstrating the Over the Horizon AIS feature of the PredictWind DataHub. So before we start, let me explain what that is. So typical AIS, which comes in over VHF, has a range of about 2 to 5 miles. So for Class B vessels, which transmit with low power, the maximum range is usually between 2 and 3 miles. And you will have observed this when traveling with friends. If they happen to get away from you by more than 2 or 3 miles, you lose them on your AIS displays, on your MFDs and your charting programs. Class A AIS is a little better because they transmit with more power, but typically 5 miles, 10 miles, but rarely more than 10 miles. So if you're traveling offshore and you have a container ship coming at you at 25 knots and you're moving at 7 knots, 10 miles doesn't give you much notice, and so it's be really nice if you could extend the range of AIS out much further so that you could see targets, especially offshore, that are approaching you and give you plenty of warning to take action. So that is what Over the Horizon AIS is. Over the Horizon AIS works as follows. The data hub is connected to the internet. The data hub has access to all of the AIS targets collected via land stations, other vessels, and satellite imagery. So the entire universe of AIS is available to the hub. The hub also knows where you are, so it can download AIS targets over an internet connection for vessels that are around you and then push them out via NMEA 183 to display in applications such as Aquamaps, which is what's being displayed right now, and also via the N2K network onto your MFDs so that you can see those same targets on your multifunction displays. They look exactly like the ones that are received over the air and give you range out to a maximum of 300 nautical miles from your current location. So let's see how to set that up. So the service is not on by default. It requires two things. It requires three things: a data hub, an internet connection on your vessel, whether that be through Starlink, Iridium, or some other satellite connection, or cell phone. If you're coastal out to, say, 20 nautical miles, that works just fine. You also need a data hub, you need an internet connection, and you need a PredictWind professional account. So let's just go take a look on how to set that up. So let me just move over here to my web browser. And right now I'm connected to a friend's boat in Fort Pierce. I'm currently in Tennessee, so not a lot of interesting AIS here. But we're looking at his setup here. And so you will find that under NMEA, under Services NMEA, Internet AIS, you'll see two different choices. Enable AIS to Internet. We've talked about that before. That's where your hub collects AIS from your radio and transmits it to the Internet. And then further down you'll see Enable AIS from the Internet. So there's some text here that describes how that service works. And of course this button will not be available to be enabled unless of course you enter your PredictWind DataHub, your PredictWind professional account, and you could do that by either clicking on the link or by going to Services, by going to Settings, Account. And so here it is. And so you would enter your PredictWind email address and the email address you've got registered with PredictWind and your password, and then you would hit Save and Apply, and that would check to make sure that your account is active and that you do have a professional account. Once you've done that, you can return to this section, and then all of these settings will be available. So let's go through them very quickly. First of all, there's a range button, or range value, which sets the range. Now you can set that to 300 nautical miles, but I caution you that if you're coastal, that can be 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 vessels. So that takes a while to download. It consumes bandwidth. It also takes time to push those to all your displays, and your displays will get bogged down trying to manage 5,000 targets. So I would only set that range to a very long distance if you happen to be well offshore, where there are not a lot of vessels. If you're coastal, then setting a smaller number makes sense. 50, I believe, is the default. 25 is not unreasonable. It just depends on how quickly you go and how far out you want to be able to see the vessels. Target age. So we're downloading targets from the internet. Typically, internet acquired vessels, or vessels that are acquired, AIS for vessels that are acquired from a coastal or a land-based station, are updated in a few minutes. And so the targets are pretty fresh, not very stale. Over satellite, it takes 5-10 minutes and can take as long as 30 minutes. It depends on where the satellite acquired the vessel and how long it takes that satellite to reach a ground station to transmit that data back down to the internet. So 30 minutes is about the outside for satellite targets. Now, if a vessel turns off their AIS, they don't disappear from the internet. They stay on the internet. And so they can get pretty stale and they can be hours old. And so the target age allows us to just filter out those targets that are uninteresting. The default is 45 minutes. If you're offshore, you probably want to have that larger than 30 minutes just because you want to see the satellite ones. That can take time to acquire. But you can set that value. If you're coastal, then 5 or 10 minutes probably makes a lot of sense. That reduces the total number of targets that you'll see, removing all of the stale ones. You can use the GPS, of course, to determine the center of the AIS that is to be downloaded. If you turn that off, you can specify a lat long, and so you can download AIS from anywhere on the planet. If you got an Iridium and Iridium Go, you can download those over the go. Just note that the interval for downloading targets typically on an internet connection like through Starlink is 1 minute to 2 minutes for 50 targets for a range of 50 miles. If you go to a range of 300 miles, the update time is about 10 minutes just because there's so many more vessels. When you do this over Iridium, you will download the number of targets that you've specified, or the range and the age, on the tracking interval. So if you've got tracking set up every 15 minutes, then your AIS data will be refreshed every 15 minutes. Now, it's really nice to be able to distinguish between the targets that are acquired over the air and the targets that are acquired via the internet, because the targets that are acquired over the air are real time, whereas the targets that are acquired over the internet are aged by definition. Now, if you're using applications such as Aquamaps that understands how NMEA 4.0 tagging works, then you don't need to mark your AIS targets. Now, marking the AIS targets basically means that we change some of the fields in the AIS data so that you can identify those targets both on the MFD and on your navigation apps. So those apps that are not familiar with NMEA 4.3 and can parse NMEA 4.3 data will need to have this done. And so the default is on, and it's pretty simple. We take the call sign field for the vessel and we change that to DataHub. So if you look at a vessel information on your AIS display on your MFD, for example, you'll see a call sign, WBE 9808, or you'll see DataHub. If you see WBE 9808 or some other call sign that is not DataHub, then that target was acquired via the airwaves. Whereas if you see DataHub, then that target was acquired via the internet. Also, note that for Class A vessels, we set the destination to be time of last update, and we set the ETA to be the time that target was updated. So we can't do that for Class B vessels because ETA and destination are not a field for Class B vessels, but we can do it for Class A vessels, which are the ones that you're probably going to you're interested in when you're offshore. They're the ones that show up in satellite. Class B vessels don't normally show up very well on satellite, and so you probably wouldn't be seeing Class B vessels when you're offshore anyway. So that's what the mark does. And then the AIS tags the NMEA 183 sentences with the actual time of acquisition and the fact that they came over the internet. There's an example of the NMEA 183 4.0 tag sentence right below. And again, special applications, as far as I know, Aquamap is the only one that does this, that is able to parse that right now. And that allows the application to know the time of acquisition and the fact that it came over the internet for all targets, A and B as well. Hit save and apply, and at that point, if you've got an internet connection, the hub will start downloading and displaying information. You will see so you'll see a syslog tab at the very top. I'll press that. So if I'm pressing that tab, allows me to see that we are downloading AIS. See where it says refreshing AIS status success, 351 vessels, and the range is 50, and the next refresh is 2 minutes. So for that many vessels, the refresh is taking 2 minutes. The refresh increases in speed with smaller vessels. So the more vessels that are being downloaded, the longer the refresh period. So every 2 minutes now, we basically refresh AIS. All right, so let's see what this looks like. Let's go to Aquamaps. Aquamaps is set up to receive AIS information from this particular data hub. And let's see, so here we are, we're in Fort Pierce, and we're starting to refresh our AIS targets. Now, in Aquamaps, you'll notice that AIS targets show up as either brown dots, brown circles, or vessels in motion, or a small x. Small x means that the data, that target is about to be deleted, that there hasn't been a refresh. If you hold and press the AIS button on the screen, just like I've demonstrated here, you will see a list of all the AIS targets, and of course, here they are. There's quite a few of them, and as we refresh this, that list will get to be 350 vessels long. So here we go, it's getting longer as we download and refresh the particular list. So I can zoom out. So we're in Fort Pierce. You notice that my iPad is running a little slow because we're processing a lot of AIS targets. And here we are all the way down to Riviera Beach and West Palm Beach. So we're seeing targets a long ways. And here's one, for example, Dive Master, apparently a dive boat, which is an internet acquired target. I can tell that by seeing that, in fact, the call sign is DataHub. Also, I see that it was updated 5 minutes ago. So again, a little bit of lag on that. But I have a course that's heading and the distance it is from my location. So let's go back to our location. Let's go back to our AIS display. If I list these by distance, and I take a look here at one of these, for example, that vessel has no call sign, but it's acquired via the airwaves. So again, all the vessels that are close to me, here's a call sign, MBP09, and so that's a target that was acquired via the air and not a target that was acquired over the internet. Note that targets that were acquired over the air have priority over those over the internet. If you have a vessel that was acquired via the air, the internet version of that target will not be displayed. Also, finally note that under Settings, under Wi-Fi, on Aquamaps, you will note that you have under AIS data 2 sources: your mobile AIS station, that's the ones that are coming over the air, and your NMEA 4.0 repeater AIS station, which is the data hub itself. And so if you were to uncheck that, then you would only get the ones over the air. If you were to uncheck the mobile AIS station, then you would only get the ones from the internet. Normally we would want to see both, which is why we've got them both checked. But that's it. So that's the Over the Horizon AIS. I hope you enjoy the product. I think it's a fantastic development, and one that will cause you to sail safely and increase your comfort and pleasure. See ya. Thanks.